we welcome Robert Driver, the general director of the Indianapolis Opera from 1981 to 1991.
Mm.
And yet we still feel like he is the general director of the Indianapolis Opera
Ah,
because of the legacy of what you established here. I know you didn't see it that way. I know you didn't predict it that way. But for me personally, um, when I came on board, how you came alongside me, even in the interview process,
yeah.
even with the introductions of people, um, it felt like you had been here. And I know you went on to Opera Philadelphia, and you had gone and worked with many others. But you know when you're at a place that's the right place, it doesn't really feel like you ever left, right?
No,
And
absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I have such a strong feeling for Indianapolis and for the opera and what we did there. It was really special. It wasn't easy, but it was special. And then, as you say, leap forward 20 years. And when you started, I remember so well our conversation by phone when we first spoke. I was in Saratoga and you were in Indiana, and we found we had that connection with Dean Bain, and I thought, well, this guy's all right.
right, right. Well, not only Dean Bain, but how you were a forerunner of the idea of this collaborative production element of not just renting sets, but
Yeah,
it was looking at the cast and the chorus and the orchestras and the directors and just looking at the entire equation and what you did with the company in Memphis and Syracuse and Indianapolis. And I remember vividly talking with you in my interviews and and how I had been doing that in Asheville
mm-hmm.
before I came here, and I did it to survive.
Yes,
And you sort of said the same thing. You were doing it to survive and expand at the same time, and that put Indianapolis
precisely.
on the map.
Well,
Uh,
it's exactly that, and you really the thing you touched on is I was approached by two other companies who I won't mention, and I before Indianapolis, and I proposed that because I thought here I was, I'd come from Germany and doing two nights of opera four times a year or five times a year. I just thought, wait a minute, that's ridiculous. The Ford Motor Company wouldn't build a model and then just do five cars.
right, right.
You know, and that's really exactly right. I mean, I thought, my gosh, we have to, because everyone always has financial challenges, shall we put it that way? And Syracuse was doing fine, but it was I was feeling a border that I couldn't go beyond. There I had a wonderful facility there and everything, and then I actually got called by the gentleman who Dean Bain spoke to the founder of the Kentucky Opera, uh, Moritz Barnhart, the wonderful mad Moritz Barnhart. Absolutely, you know, and he is the one who then brought, Dean Bain uh, said, "You must come to America. We need you there now." And then he talked to Baumhart, and Baumhart called me. Well, I went to Louisville from Munich, but of course, years later, Mr. Baumhart called me up and said, "I need for you to go to Indianapolis. They're having some challenges, and I
Yes,
think I think you can help them."
right.
And I arrived in Indianapolis. I had never been there. I really, even though when I came from Munich and met with Dean Bain at IU, but I never went to Indianapolis. I'd never been there before.
Right.
And I remember, I know this sounds odd, but I remember even in the airport when I stopped to ask somebody a question about maybe getting, I don't know what it was, but the person was so outgoing and happy. And I thought,
Right.
well, this place is okay.
Yes, the Hoosier hospitality is
Yeah.
has been historically noted, and that is part of the legacy of all of these alumni
Mhm.
that are coming back to be with us on March 22nd for
Yeah.
anniversary event. Every single one of them, Robert, has shared with me Indianapolis was family. It was a
Oh
home
yeah.
away from home. It's where I grew up. It's where we grew up together. Um, uh, I did an interview on TV with Jim Caraher, a part of
Oh
this
great.
whole
Great.
extravaganza, and and he said when he found people that were very much in his realm of excellence and artistic work, but they were still growing. And he said
Right.
they came back and we grew together.
Exactly.
And I think that that was established with you because you brought in Jim Caraher, you brought in John Davies and John Schmidt and many others, but those
Yeah.
are the three that went on for
All
eons and
through.
years, decades with the
Yeah.
company. And I think people felt like you were always still part of the company because Jim carried that out,
Yeah. Well,
and you brought that.
well, it was it, and I have to tell you that that openness, and I mean, really, I remember saying to the board, you have no reason to be so optimistic. But they said we're going to do this, and when they approached me about coming there, then I of course I said, well, the only way I would love to, but I did the only way it will work is if we can combine Syracuse and Indianapolis
Right.
together and make that whole. And that was like they were not ready for that, and in fact they turned it down. Uh,
Except you had a diamond in the rough
yeah,
with one of your board members, Patty Curran and William
oh
Curran,
yeah,
that couple.
oh yeah,
And that's the other element of this is you cultivated legacy families that are still with us today.
yeah.
And Tom and Bonnie Riley, uh,
Oh yeah.
and Doug Zipes, Dr. Doug Zipes and his wife, and Jimmy and Muffy James, and
Oh, incredible! Yeah, yeah.
Barbie and Phyllis Feigenbaum, and I mean the list is plentiful, and they've been around for
Oh
30, 40 plus years.
yeah, it's incredible too because you know, like the Feigenbaums, I just met them casually, and they were modestly involved, and then they got more and more, and of course that was true of like Diana Nearing and and I've always felt that I was so fortunate with the board presidents that I had. I
Right.
mean, the first one was Charlie Borders, and he was with the electric company. He was all business. We sat down and did a budget and everything, and our first budget was like $211,000.
Well, thank you for answering one of the questions. I was going to go. So, what was the operating size of the budget in 1981? Do you remember?
Yes, it was $211,000.
Okay, well,
And
I can say we are about a million plus more than that. So,
yeah, yeah. Well, here it was right here.
oh my goodness, he has
I
it. He
I
has
didn't
it right
actually
there.
remember that.
Yes, and of course, there's been no inflation since then. But um,
No, no, no.
yes, so we have always said that opera is a terrible business model, and yet it's the greatest
Yeah,
catalyst of emotional expression in music. That juxtaposition is the top and the bottom of the challenges of what we have to deal with.
right.
The
Absolutely.
optimism that they had when they brought you, I think they had optimism when they brought me in, even though we were in tough times too. But I speak to people that, what is it about this concert that we're going to be putting together? And I basically have said it's taken 50 years to plan the concert.
Yeah,
And part of that is just
yeah,
growing up as a city, as an
exactly.
institution, growing up with the other extraordinary institutions of music here, the Indianapolis Symphony, who we will be partnering with
Yeah,
on this concert and being in the Hilbert Circle Theater.
yeah,
Alfred Savia leading them. Alfred Savia's first circle, full circle is that he was the
He was
associate
at the
conductor
orchestra.
under
Yeah,
Raymond Part
yeah,
in his
yeah.
coming up. And then Jim Caraher is going to return back to the stage and the music leader for 20 some 25 many years. Uh,
Right.
so there's a longevity to this when you come to 50.
Yeah,
And it's almost like we finally almost grew up.
yeah.
But
Well,
at the same
one of the most important things that happened when I came, and it just is again another example of how people were so open. I mean, the company was in terrible shape, and it had been hiring its own orchestral musicians. And I said to Mary Sutherland, who was on the board, Mary,
what a name. Yes, Mary
yeah,
and Donald Sutherland.
I said, Mary, can you introduce me to the president of the Indianapolis Symphony? And she said, yes. What? I said, well, why don't we talk to them and see if they want to have some extra gigs?
Yes,
And I went to Henry Ryder. I mean, it was like a 20-minute conversation. It was a done deal, you know.
exactly.
And
Exactly.
and they accommodated us by they would use half of the orchestra for like a Mozart concert instead of a full orchestra, you know, and they would send us the other, and that's how we started. It was done, you know, and that's unusual. That I mean, I loved and loved Philadelphia, and I loved Indianapolis. But let me tell you, there was nothing easy about that sort of thing in Indiana in Philadelphia. Oh God, you
Well,
know,
you definitely recognize the favor of things that you return back to, and it wasn't that you were forgotten. It's just you were out there working and involving yourself in the opera industry. And so, my question from your perspective, international, North American, being in the heartland of the country, what is the significance of an opera company in Indianapolis from your perspective?
well, I mean, I think that that's such an important thing because as I said, I didn't know anything about Indianapolis when I went there. I knew it was this, you know, a major American city, but one I didn't know. And then when I got there, uh, Indianapolis was going through this incredible growth, you know, and it everyone on the board, it was a can do, really a can do city, you know, and every challenge we had, there really wasn't any question that we were going to make it, you know,
Right.
because if it was, I mean, for example, just the simplest things like I went to US Air had just gotten started. So I went to US Air and approached them and I said to them, uh, you know, I'm here to do you guys a favor. You know, the Metropolitan Opera was sponsored by Texaco for all these years, and I would never go and buy gas anywhere else because
Yes.
I'm a loyal Metropolitan. And so I said, I'm going to make you, US Air is going to be the Metropolitan Opera for the Syracuse and Indianapolis. And they patted me on the head and gave me a $500 check. And I said, I'm going to use that $500, but we're just starting.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Because we know that once they come into the
Yeah,
equation, that is just so much of an advantage. And I think that the perspective of having opera in the middle of the country,
right.
we absolutely have to draw from the Metropolitan Operas and the Philadelphias and the San Franciscos and the LAs and Seattles,
Yeah.
but also we
But
have Chicago and
yeah,
Houston that is, and we're in the middle of that. And
and
the
I,
establishment of that is there is a pipeline. There's a stepping stone uh,
absolutely.
of so many different things. And every single one of these singers that are coming back, from Nova Thomas to
Yeah,
Greg Ture
right.
to
Oh, yeah,
Eric McKeever and Angela Brown, they will say that many of the things that they learned the right way were done here.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I'll never forget going to IU because you know I would go down there to hear young singers, and I remember hearing Angela and of course, her wonderful teacher
Yeah, Virginia's Leone.
says, "You'll be here for, but you may not have her yet."
Right, right. Yes, yes. But you know, as an IU alumni, that's one of the rare schools that you get to hear from somebody that says, I know what's coming,
Yes.
and we will be careful on that progress. And
Yeah.
that's a rarity that is so amazing to even Cincinnati Conservatory, which is just a little
Yeah.
bit further away from that, to have those students that are
Oh,
coming down and a part of us. I mean, what a place. And Bob, the thing that I want to sort of lean into on the last part of our conversation here is that you have seen the evolution of American opera, and you have reflected on all of the ups and downs financially, all of the ups and downs of the growth of artists. What can you say about how opera has evolved our country?
well, I have to tell you that my, Dean Bain was so positive, and I thought, okay, I buy his, so I come to America. And when I landed in Louisville in 1968, I almost had a heart attack because uh, physical conditions were wanting. But immediately, we were drawing on the best young artists coming out of graduating from IU, and we had singers that were actually, I mean, in Munich we had a fabulous ensemble. It was a wonderful place to work, and then we brought in international artists. But what we were able to do in all the American situations is, as you say, is develop young artists who are at the most exciting time in their life, where just as they're leaving the IUs and the Juilliards and beginning their careers, and they come, and American singers. That was one of the big things in Munich that impressed me so much. Every American artist that came into Munich was totally prepared. They knew their roles. They knew everyone else's role. They did not, and I had to gently tell the souffleur, please don't souffleur to the American artists. It gets in their way. They know their roles, and that was the excitement. The quality of the talent, in America was just extraordinary, and always has been, and is today, of course. And I think the biggest thing that was always a challenge for me is to try to go beyond standard repertoire, you
Right.
know, so that in my time, I got in a little trouble sometimes when I allowed a stage director, for example, in Faust, in the Walpurgis night, got quite explicit. and I told the French director, I said, you may do anything that's in the Goethe. Well, he actually went beyond that. And I remember we were in Clews Hall, and Mr. Clews and his whole family got up and left. But it wasn't what everyone in the audience thought. Oh God, the Clewses are upset. No, Mr. Clews told me they were having a family meeting and everyone had to leave, so he was going to get up and not to get excited. But I was the only one who knew that.
Right.
But it was quite out there. And then we did a Carmen, and I told Christopher Alden, who is an international director, but he was just beginning then, and I said, Carmen is very nice, but it can get very boring, particularly when you get to the mountain scene. Well,
Yes.
let me tell you, that Carmen, I got in more trouble for a much less audacious Carmen in Philadelphia than the one that I think the one that we did there in the mid 80s would still get me fired in Philadelphia. But it was great. And the thing I was most proud of the three cities, Syracuse, Indianapolis, and Memphis, Indianapolis is the one who just went crazy for it. They just went crazy for it. So, and in my other two cities, my boards were not amused.
Right. Right.
So
Well,
there you have.
what a great testing ground, right? I mean,
Yeah,
what a place to be able to try all these things out, and
yeah.
we consider that you have always been a part of the company. I
Well,
have felt it. The legendary families have felt it. The artists have felt it. We are
well,
so glad that you have been a part of us for all these years and will continue to be a part of it. And it has been a pleasure to know you as a friend, as a mentor, um, and to be able to take this time and to thank you for what
well,
you planted here and what you have been able to literally see grow. And the next 50 years, I don't think I'll be at the 100th. I doubt that. Um,
well, you know,
I know, but I
I
do
know
know,
I won't.
well, I do know that going forward, it's going to have a bit of what you have done, what you have instilled in me, and what I'm trying to plant here. Um, and I do have optimism with great regard to what this company has done and what it's going to do, and to be an
Well,
anchor in the Midwest. So thank you
well,
very much.
well, and congratulations on. I mean, you, as you say, you were faced with a number of challenges when you got there, and then came COVID. Oh, that's just what one needed, right? And I think it's just wonderful. And I think the thing that one probably people in Indianapolis don't realize is how special it is to have your own opera center, you know, and what
That
you
is
have
a blessing.
what
Um,
you have done with that and what the board and all of again it's there's very few opera companies that have a physical home like you do, and having artists like Angela Brown acting in that capacity also with you. I mean, it's just great. It's great.
Well, that's where we're coming from here.
Mhm.
You're coming from your wonderful studio where you still are actively doing things, and that inspiration is truly not only to me but all of us that are here. So Angela and I will cheer you
Ah,
on, and we're thankful for everything. And just it's a true blessing to be able to have you a part of this company. Thank you.
well, thank you for this wonderful interview. I really appreciate it. It's wonderful to review all of that, and I know it's going to be a great evening, and I will think of all of you.
Thank you.